the point that I always try to emphasize is that we want to emphasize that which the Bible emphasizes. And so, in terms of this wildly popular idea that the primary threat to Israel in the last days is Russia, is derived completely, when it really boils down to it, from one passage, which is Ezekiel 38:39. And then specifically, it really boils down to two little segments of that passage. One is the word Rosh. There's been a debate among scholars with regard to this word Rosh, which is used 602 times throughout the Hebrew Scriptures, most often referring to chief or head. You have Rosh Hashanah, the chief day of the year, Rosh Kodesh. So the Hebrew word Rosh, 602 times used throughout the Old Testament, always referring to chief or head. That's what it means. Some people argue that it should be used as a proper noun in this one instance. So Hebrew scholars have debated this. Now, some argue that it should be an adjective, again saying head or chief. Some argue that it should be a proper noun referring to a place, thus they translate it literally as Rosh. And then they say, thus this is referring to clearly Russia. Now, the problem with that is that about 15 years ago, a Hebrew scholar named Daniel Block really took the arguments from both sides and he synthesized them and wrote a very scholarly article arguing that the word there should be translated as the prince, the chief. So it is Gog of Magog, the prince, the chief of Meshech Tubal. So he argues that it should be a noun, but it should not be a proper noun. Now, since that time, Hebrew scholars have widely accepted this, in fact, almost universally. And I was able to correspond with Daniel Block via email. And, he said the only people that really reject this are what he called the populists. But among the Hebrew scholar community, it's universally accepted. So this idea that Russia is going to invade Israel is almost entirely based on a misinterpretation of one word in one passage. We don't ever want to build a doctrine, nothing this dramatic, off of one word, and is particularly a passage that's so debatable.
And you said, though, that Turkey is probably going to be the threat to Israel.
Yeah, now, the other argument that people use is they say that Gog is from Magog, and so they refer to Josephus in the 1st century, who says that the Magog, the Magogians, or the Magogites, are actually the Scythian peoples, which, as history tells us, migrated out of Asia Minor through modern-day Romania, Moldova, over to Ukraine, and then eastward across the Russian steppes. This is more than likely true. The problem is that the proper method of interpreting the scriptures is not this method of tracing bloodlines, lineages, migrations, intermarriages, and the spreading of these peoples. Rather, it is the historical grammatical method. So what this means is that we try to understand the passage based on how Ezekiel himself and his very Old Testament literate Hebrew audience would have understood that word. They would have had their worldview informed by the Table of Nations in Genesis. And so universally, when you look at scholarly evangelical Bible atlases, they're always saying that Magog is in modern-day Turkey or ancient Asia Minor. And clearly they affirm the fact that Meshech and Tubal were also in Asia Minor. So thus Gog of Ezekiel 38:39 is from Magog, chief prince of Meshech Tubal. That's modern-day Turkey, that's Asia Minor,